of the media. Good morning and welcome to the annual business meeting of the UWI St. Augustine Campus Council. My name is Sharon Christopher and I am chair of the council and I will be moderating today's proceedings. This year we continue to meet in hybrid format and we remain grateful, I should say, that the technology allows us to do so. I am pleased to see those of us gathered here in person, and I extend a special welcome to all who are joining us virtually. The University of the West Indies celebrates its 75th Diamond Anniversary this year, 2023, the theme of which is Rooted, Ready, Rising. Rooted because we are paying tribute to our past, rooted as we are in the Caribbean. For 75 years, we have worked for and on behalf of our region, while at the same time creating a global footprint. Ready, because we are committed, ready, and able to respond to the Caribbean's current needs and goals, just as we have done at every stage from independence right through to the global pandemic. The University of the West Indies remains a valuable resource to overcome any challenge put in our way. And we are rising. The light rising from the west with aspirations of further growth and a beacon of empowerment to our Caribbean community. As we look back at the period being reviewed at this meeting, that is the 2021 to 2022 academic year, we can only feel a sense of joy and accomplishment when we reflect that the regional university, and indeed this campus, made it through the worst of the pandemic. We are saddened, though, that so many people did not. In the last year, 2021 to 2022, St. Augustine, and that was the last year that St. Augustine operated almost entirely in the virtual space, and we now in a hybrid environment. Now it is time to regroup and address the significant financial challenges that face us, both as a university and this campus in particular, as we emerge from an almost post-pandemic world. But we are emerging into a new day. I take this opportunity to welcome Professor Rosemary Bell-Antoine, who succeeded Professor Brian Copeland as Pro Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal for St. Augustine. And permit me, if I just repeat what I said at her induction ceremony. Professor Antoine, I pledge my support during your tenure, and I wish you strength, courage, and wisdom. Council meetings are a fundamental aspect of the accountability of the University of the West Indies. As Council Chair, my role is to preside over today's meeting in accordance with the University's statutes and ordinances. This morning, we will give an account of the performance of the St. Augustine campus over the 2021 to 2022 academic year. Professor Antoine and her deans will shortly present the annual report. Following this, Vice Chancellor Professor Sir Hilary Beckles will deliver a statement to the university community and viewing audience. Campus Registrar Dr. Dawn Marie Defoe-Gill serves in the capacity of secretary for the meeting to guide the meeting's proceedings. I thank you, and I now invite Professor Antoine to address you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I want to remind us of our mission and our ethos. We've heard about the theme, which is Rooted, Ready, and Rising for the 75th. And I want to assure you that for the past 60 years, the St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago has shouldered its role in the mission of the university. And our university, now 75 years old, has been a key instrument of national and regional development. We've been harnessing dynamic research, and we have positively transformed and will continue to transform the Caribbean and the wider world. And this is why we selected our theme, The New Day, coming after, as you heard, the ravages of the COVID pandemic. And as we look back at the 20 to 21, 22 period, we're looking forward to this new day of opportunity. We've returned to face-to-face classes, we've returned to our laboratories and to our libraries. And I want to take a moment to thank my predecessor, former principal, Brian Copeland, now emeritus, because really he was the one who had the stewardship during this very difficult time. And so it really is his report that I have the honor to present. Our core business, teaching and learning, we did see a slide in our enrollment, a further 5% compared with the previous year, so we're now down to 15,130 students. Undergraduate students dropped by 4%, although this was uneven because we saw some faculties, engineering, law, medical sciences, and sport, in fact having an increase in enrollment. It was the others that declined. And I think perhaps the greatest worry is the decline in the postgraduate enrollment, which was a decline by 8%, and in some cases as much as 31% in law, which is a self-financed program, and a 26.5% decline in the postgrad certificate courses. Of course, we appreciate that we were operating in a very difficult economic environment, and also the fact that there had been adjustments to the gate. But we are already researching and going into a deep dive as to why, to be sure that we know the answer so that we can treat with it. In terms of graduate studies, we did have some important wins. We were able to digitalize some key processes, the Research Ethics Committee, the Scholarship Applications and Approval, and in the Campus Research and Publication Fund, which is our main fund, to propel research for both staff and students at the university level. And in fact, St. Augustine was the first to implement and drive these processes, and it was then extended. They were then extended to the other campuses, including training. And we have to thank our director and his team for these innovations. We also saw grade point average introduced to the taught programs at St. Augustine. Previously, that was just undergraduate. Some important progressive developments in terms of what we call SETTLE, which is, of course, the body that looks at our quality assurance and keeps us on track. Despite the difficulties of the period, they were able to have very rigorous reviews of 355 courses and programs during that period, and also were able to ensure that we got into this new century and age of IT and digitization, so we are automating the processes to improve the times. And we are seeing this important program, the CUTTLE, which is where we train our teachers for it to be the best that they can be in terms of delivery and quality assurance. We have new cohorts, and that program is continuing. In terms of student support, we have very in-depth processes and institutions dedicated to student support and the student experience. And we saw some important gains in the period as well. There was an increased participation in the virtual new student orientations. We now have a new Smart Start pre-orientation as part of that. And we went deeper into career exploration, planning and development workshops. And these are now available to all students online via the My eLearning platform. Our quite well-known World of Work program was also expanded to such topics such as cyberbullying, internet addiction, digital transformation, personal branding, and others. And very importantly, this campus has been somewhat of a trailblazer in terms of how we treat with disabilities, dedicated for many years to ensuring we accommodate persons with disabilities. But we've gone one step further And we are part of a task force university-wide to come up with a firm and formal policy on disability. And this will ensure that we supplement the existing disability initiatives that we have, including, for instance, those that have to do admissions in law, and I know medicine as well, considering these. So we look forward to that. And interestingly, we have also been engaged in drafting an anti-bullying campus policy, and that will soon be completed. The very important aspect of mental health, which, if anything, became of even greater significance during the COVID time, the most difficult COVID times. We have also worked hard in this area. Our counseling and psychological services were able to improve their access to counseling for students, even though there was limited physical access to the campus. They were opening outside of hours, and also 2,400 consultations in 10 months, which is quite phenomenal. And of course, you have the online kind of consultations as well. And they trained 55 volunteers to help support local mental health projects. The Student Amenities Fund, which, as you know, was a fund introduced some years ago all over the university and is administered by my very hardworking deputy principal, Professor Ramnarayan. In fact, I think he's quite popular because of this, because the successes have been really, really impressive. And I want you to note some of them. That fund, through that fund and through the hard work of that office and the students, because they're a joint team, the Guild, we purchased 50 laptops. We were able to renovate washrooms at the Student Activity Center. We upgraded the fitness center at UWI St. We installed GPS tracking devices in the shuttle buses to try to enhance efficiency. And if you look at the very lovely picture of that, no, that is not part of a house. That beautiful building is really a pavilion at the northern pedestrian entrance and a canopy to protect our students in the bad weather. We also covered new and existing walkways, and many people have thanked us because of it, staff included, not just students. Very important, security was key. So we were able to light covered walkways, light the MedSci car park, install CCTV systems, and so much more work was done with this fund. So really great initiatives there. And the library too had to innovate during this time because, of course, the library was physically closed for most of the period. And so some of the innovations, the online chat, customer service, LibChat, which was quite extensive and went on to 8 p.m. And also it facilitated loans of electronic devices and print materials to students in need. And this was set up at the Sir Arthur Lewis Hall of Residence. And they displayed a lot of agility in terms of ensuring that students had access to their learning materials. So what they did was to provide a digital open education resource to support teaching and learning and research materials. So those materials that were available online, we were able to harness to assist our students. I can tell you law students in particular, those expensive law reports, etc., were able to get it. So it was really wonderful work by the library and showing how they were agile. Here I want to introduce you to our leaders of the students. Throughout the period, we had Mr. Kobe Sandy, who was the Guild President, 2021 to 22. And now we have an interim Guild President, Mr. Kyle Bisnoff. Welcome, Mr. Bisnoff. Always working, and the students are very impressive throughout that last year, not just ensuring that students' interests were well served, although we were in an emergency, but also engaging in charitable events. And really, our students, led by the Students' Guild, should be commended. And they found time to thank others. So at their first gala event at the NAPA, National Academy for the Performing Arts, on May 29th, the Guild presented some very important awards. The Terry-Ann Joseph Award. Terry-Ann was a past guild president. Actually, she was there when I was a student, one of the few, if not the first woman guild leader. We also had the McCandle, and that went to Janice Scotty, the McCandle Dagger Award for Advocacy and Activism, which went to Casey Peters. The Kenton John Award for a student who exemplified the spirit of the university, which went to Kimmy Potts, and the Presidential Award of Honor to our Deputy Principal, Professor Indar Ramnarayan, for his outstanding support to the Guild of Students. Congratulations, all of you. We did manage, finally, to have a face-to-face graduation after 2 years of virtual graduations, which have their advantages, but just not quite the same. So we had our 6 ceremonies. We were able to see 2,756 undergraduates graduate on those days, and 932 postgraduates. And we noticed that there was an increase in those who came out to those graduations. And as always, we awarded some honorary graduates to some very, very special persons. Who can forget, of course, Lord Nelson's bringing down the house. He was one of them at that graduation. The very distinguished Dr. Shakuntala Tilstad, who was a winner of a World Prize before in Agriculture and Science. Miss Ingrid Lashley for her work in corporate banking and finance. Mrs. Rosalind Gabriel for her work as a carnival band leader. She's the one who does Kiddies Carnival. And Dr. Wayne Frederick, who we gave an honorary graduate to, who was also recently awarded the Order of Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He's the president of Howard University. So some very distinguished persons, and again, congratulations. Turning now to research and scholarship, which is a very important focus of our university. We are not just here to teach, but we are also here to research and to ensure that we are part of the developmental agenda for the region, and that's how we do it, with excellent research. And what you will notice is that the research at the St. Augustine campus is wide and varied, but it has also targeted some very important key regional imperatives. But before I give you a bit about what those were, I want to acknowledge some really wonderful successes on the global stage. So for example, 7 of our researchers and staff members were featured in a publication, the top 2% of authors in the science disciplines in 176 subfields. Our Professor Terence Simangal, who's actually Dean of Medical Sciences, Professor Hazi Azamatullah in engineering, Dr. Sefa Rampasad in science and technology, Professor Christopher Ura in vet science, Dr. Mandrika Bahal and Dr. Rajiv Dahaya, medical sciences again, and the late Professor Dave Chedi from sciences, whom you might remember did all that outstanding work on the mosquito. Congratulations to them all. And so some of the cutting-edge research that went on, and the deans will be speaking more in detail of their work, but we just pulled out some. We had such an impact in terms of research because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our medics were there front and center, working with the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the region, in particular in relation to genome sequencing and other related issues in relation to COVID-19. Not just the medics, but the health economics unit as well was working on COVID-19, conducting workshops and studies to ensure we were able to scale up best practices to improve our regional response, looking at all various aspects of COVID-19, including mental health, maintaining health services, vulnerable groups, and economic recovery. So a lot of work was happening because of the pandemic. Of course, if we talk about key imperatives and research for this region, climate change is front and center. So although you will hear more from other faculties, we wanted to highlight the solar energy project from the Faculty of Sciences and Technology, the partnership with UNIPET on the solar project, There's even plans to install a solar system on the rooftop of the Natural Sciences Building, and some key partnerships with Trinity Exploration and Production on solar and wind assessments. As always, St. Augustine is doing extremely well in terms of attracting funding for its research. When we add up what we got last year and those that we on our own, and also through the PBC grad studies from our researchers, it's well over 40 million to add to the 52.2 million in terms of the existing income at the time. And when you look at it, you see that all faculties are doing their part to attract funding for research, and that is a tremendous achievement. Just to mention that the St. Augustine campus is very proud of the fact that among our staff, and even our chairs coming for acclaim, we keep winning national awards. And when you look at the national awards, and I think we must one day do a press and a release to show how many of our staff have actually won national awards. And in the period as well, you can see Shakonia Medal Gold, Ms. Sharon Christopher, our chair, Professor Winston Mellows. We had Medal of Merit Gold, Ms. Jillian McIntyre, and the year before as well, the 2020, because last year they celebrated 2 years of the awards. So we had another impressive list of national awards from our staff, and we congratulate them. But the awards didn't stop in terms of national awards. We also had awards for the Bocas Lit Festival, awarded our Emeritus Professor Funjo Ajiana and Dr. Merle Hodge, and they were awarded the Bocas Henry Swansea Award for Distinguished Service to Caribbean Letters. Many other awards, Mr. Andres Antonopoulos, who won the Best New Media Award at the 2021 Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. That was his documentary, Rhythms of Trinidad. Professor Christine Carrington, who's probably a household name now because of her work in COVID, won the 2022 Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Excellence Laureate for Science and Technology for her work in virus evolution. And Dr. Arlene Williams-Prasad, who's a lecturer in pharmacology, and she received the 2022 award of Distinguished Woman in Immunology from the Latin American and Caribbean Congress, for her work on the treatment and management strategies of chronic granulomatous, Dean Simongal, disease. I did try to practice. Dr. Amy Deacon of the Department of Life Sciences, and she received the 2022 FSBI Medal for being an early career scientist who has made an exceptional contribution to fish biology or fisheries science, and that's an international award as well. We also had our chair starring with the Caribbean Court of Justice, a pioneering Caribbean woman jurist from the region. In terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, as you know, this is an area the St. Augustine campus has for many years, I would say the last 3 administrations at least, we have been targeting innovation and entrepreneurship, and a lot of work was done during that period by Professor Copeland to move the agenda forward, and my administration as well is continuing in that work. And during this period, we were able to set up, through the work of the entrepreneurship unit, Julian Henry working with UVL, one of the companies we set up to facilitate innovation and entrepreneurship, a business accelerator program with the Unit Trust Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago. And what that would do is mentor young entrepreneurs and train them, and also support business startups and to ensure that they are sustainable. And this would be in all various areas, and this was found within a 2.2 million injection. There was also other activities such as the EU Innovation and Entrepreneurship Masterclass Series. Here you have a nice photo of some breadfruit. I'm sure we got that from the Faculty of Agriculture, and we are going into outreach, and certainly the Faculty of Agriculture is doing a lot in outreach. And just to mention that during the period as well, that faculty, of course, it's our oldest faculty in the sense that it had a distinguished presence long before we even formed. So they have celebrated their 100-year legacy of teaching, learning, research, and innovation. And when I said our research is targeting some key areas for the region, I don't think you can get any more key than agriculture and food security and sustainability. And certainly that faculty is doing its part. And they had many, many, many activities. Here you see them staging the 5 tree planting ceremonies, planting 139 trees, representing 28 species at our campus, really. So we will be able to keep our campus not just beautiful, but also green. The dental care for special needs children is also an initiative that we want to mention. Community Chest Limited donated 90,000 TT to the clinic, the dental needs clinic. And here we see a photo of that big check, and we'll be able to serve children with special needs better. And of course, that clinic offers services at subsidized costs. The Human Rights Project for remand prisoners, one close to me and in my whole life in law. And what that project is doing is attempting to address the injustices for persons who have been on remand for many, many years, in some cases as much as 21 years, without ever seeing their day or having their day in court. And noticing, of course, that some of them are women who are there for murder, but in fact were victims of domestic abuse. And one of the highlights of that project, which is funded by the EU, is a first ever historic constitutional challenge in the High Court, which is going on as we speak. In fact, in June it will be coming before, the trial will come before the court. The actual trial or the preliminary matters already have been completed. And I think what's important, it has had impact in that it's already propelled other similar judicial cases about prison conditions, etc. Salisis continues to do its stellar research on economics. They have been doing virtual webinar series. They've had 10 monthly public webinars, over 60 panelists, and their audiences are usually quite large, so they have continued their work. And in terms of research, Salisis, of course, is one of our key research institutions. The Department of Political Science, with a collaboration with Fulbright Alumni Association, TT, the US Embassy, and UTT, on a community outreach to do with science and life skills project, were able to put on an initiative in Laventille for those considered, quote, at risk, and also included purchasing robotics tools and computers for a math lab and ensuring completion of the space for use by the students. So this is a very good example of you being in the community, a goal that we are continuing. We also want to mention the work of the seismic unit. The seismic, of course, is located at St. Augustine, but it's a regional university institution, but we claim them. So just to mention the film, one of the things they, of course, continue to be active in St. Vincent and at all of the various volcanoes and earthquakes and so on happening across the region. But they also attempted to bring that reality to the public in a palatable form that they could understand. So the film Vinci Voices, Lessons from La Soufrière, which featured stories shared and lessons learned in St. Vincent when they were evaluating that volcanic eruption during the period, and several other activities like that in terms of outreach. IGDS is no stranger to our community and to this report because they remain ever dynamic. And we mentioned here last year their work partnering with Digicel to break the bias with voice, featuring Nadia Batson. And they have always been able to attract brand ambassadors, including soca stars, to recognize International Women's Day, which happened just last week, and to ensure that the theme of gender equity is kept alive in the public's eyes. Another initiative, International Day for Women and Girls in Science, they also spearheaded that work. An interesting one, until recently I had never tasted red rice, but now, of course, you're seeing it more and more on the market, and I think the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, can claim some of the fame for that, because we have been involved. For example, here we see Julian Henry of the Entrepreneurship Unit mentoring businesses and persons interested in business in relation to the Red Gold Hill Rice Multipurpose Corporation, so how to take their product to the market. And a really great initiative, and I can attest that the rice tastes really good. Another one that's close to my heart because, hint, hint, advertisement, I expect all of you to give blood very soon for the 75th year. But there we were thinking that we were doing something new, but actually this was launched last year. And we have to mention Dr. Ken Charles, who has been the leader, the pioneer, the one over the years, trying to get us to move forward with a different way of donating blood. Right now it's mandatory. And if you've had any experiences of it, when someone is ill in the hospital, you have to get the family members scramble to get the blood, which is not always easy. And so he has been really trying to ensure that we move to a voluntary blood donor setup. And now the Ministry of Health has embraced that initiative, and we will be partnering with them later on to push that. And we see a nice picture of him there with his mask as he outreaches on that important initiative. Just a picture of some of the various things we did in agriculture, open days for research, entrepreneurship, lunchtime lectures, distinguished lectures. All of the lecture series continued, despite the fact that we weren't face-to-face. In some cases, perhaps, it helped increase the number of things that we were able to do online. Great work. And our people. These are these very good-looking people here. Some of the new people who joined the leadership positions at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. We have Dr. Anand Rampasad, who's heading the St. Augustine Academy of Sport, and that also is a fairly new department doing great work. They did suffer with nobody could run and so on during the pandemic, but he'll tell you all about it himself. Nevertheless, continuing progress in that department. Dr. Suan Barrett, head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, probably needs no introduction, jumped right in and is always out there in the public speaking about gender issues. Dr. Leroy Hill, the Director for Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning that we call SETTLE, and of course, our newest director, Dr. Graham King, who is now the director for the St. Augustine Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, one of our flagship centers because of the importance we place on innovation and entrepreneurship. So congratulations to all of you for achieving the success to lead these important departments, and we look forward to your great work. And of course, we had new professors. Professor Shireen Hack, who made history as the first professor in astronomy, and of course, being a woman, it raised some eyebrows, and we were all very, very happy for her. Professor Krish Prasad Manohar, mechanical engineering. And then we had our not-so-new professors, Professor Stephen Gift and Professor Chandraban Sharma, who retired, but the university felt we couldn't let them just go into the night. So we made them into emeritus professors, so they're still with us. This is your new, well, perhaps not so new, just one or two new faces, executive management team. We still have with us our deputy principal, Professor Ramnarayan, our campus registrar, Dawn Marie DeFrudegill, our bursar, Mrs. Andrea Taylor-Hanna, and our campus librarian, Mr. Frank Sudin. And as you heard, I'm the new face on the block. And here we have our faculty deans, and I really want to commend our deans. We're going to be having them present to you in a couple of minutes or so before I wrap up at the end, because really it is the deans. The deans are what I would say the engine room, is it? Engine room of the university. They're the ones who do all of the work, part of management. They're there on the ground, but they're also there in the policy framework. And they really, really worked hard over that period. It was a really crisis type of period. Had to adapt very quickly, but not just coped. They were able to move our strategic objectives forward in all areas. So we really commend them. We have Professor Edwin Ekwe, who is the Dean of Engineering, but also the chair of our deans. Professor Mark Wedevira, who is the Dean of Food and Agriculture. Professor Elizabeth Walcott Hackshaw, a fairly new dean in Humanities and Education. Dr. Timothy Afonso, who's our acting Dean of Law. Professor Terence Simongal, Medical Sciences. Dr. Brian Coburn, Sciences and Technology. Dr. Cola Lewis Cameron, Social Sciences. And the Dean of Sport, there's a regional dean, so he lives in Jamaica. I'm sorry you can't be with us, but Dr. Akshay Mansingh, who's the Dean of Sport, and he serves all of the sports departments. And so they now will take you through some of the specifics in relation to their faculty achievements.
Thanks a lot, Chair. We start from Faculty of Engineering. The first initiative we had in the last year was restructuring and retooling of our engineering institute. We started by inaugurating our advisory board, to advise us on how to progress in, making sure that Engineering Institute maintains a very good mandate. And our chair is a well-known person, Mr. Derek Hodgson of Shell, formerly of Shell. Another thing we did was to try to retool our Engineering Institute. We appointed a new administrative assistant, and we are now trying to provide them with enough staff with enough skills and qualifications to make sure the institute does very well. Our Engineering Institute has delivered a lot of programs, micro-credentialing courses, as well as short courses, and this will continue in this coming year. Another thing is that the Institute has concluded a lot of projects. One is the UWI Metanex venture, and also the hydrogen blending with NGC. So Engineering Institute will continue to be a resource for consulting and customized training throughout the region. The next thing we have is in our initiative is to try as much as possible to improve our academic delivery. So in this past year, we have changed our regulations to now include a part-time undergraduate engineering program. So all our programs with time will become both part-time and full-time. That's undergraduate studies. Postgraduate programs are already part-time and full-time. So first of all, the geomatics engineering and land management has already started being part-time in addition to being full-time. Another achievement over the last academic year is that we have achieved reaccreditation of two of our the programs in two of our departments. One is chemical engineering and the other one is civil and environmental engineering. So in this coming year, we will continue to upgrade and improve our classrooms and general facilities to ensure that all our accreditations, which we have in all our departments, will continue. We appointed a consultant who is now assisting our staff to put our postgraduate courses on blended form. The third initiative, or third major initiative, is the development of existing and new programs. Okay. First of all, I must confess that we had a drop in the number of postgraduate students last time, but we maintained the number of students at the undergraduate level. So we'll continue to make sure that we improve our numbers. We witnessed a quadruple increase in admission of our pre-engineering students that's into our programs because we altered our entry requirement to include CSEC as well as CAPE graduates. We will continue to review all our BSc programs to try and add an extra year, preferably as an add-on Master of Engineering degree program in the fourth year. And this will ensure that after the 4 years, our students must have acquired the full educational base, which will make them, which will lead to their holistic development on as professional engineers. Another thing is that we are trying to develop new programs. So one of them is sustainable engineering, which will be pitched at different levels, certificate level, postgraduate diploma, and master's level. So all these are the major advancements we had last academic year. So without wasting your time, I now hand over to the Professor Mark Widivera, the Dean of Faculty of Food and Agriculture. Thanks a lot, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Professor Ekwe, Chair. The Faculty of Food and Agriculture, of course, continue to focus on its mandate to be the national and regional hub for excellence in teaching, research and innovation in anything agriculture, food and nutrition security, and other related areas like the environment. So as you would have heard when the principal was doing her presentation, we celebrated 100 years of existence as a faculty during the review period. And during that period, of course, one of the activities was to plant trees across the campus. And you would have heard that about 139 trees would have been planted, and each of these trees will have a QR code, and the QR code will carry the scientific information about the tree and also we had some donors for these trees, and so the trees, the QR code will also carry some information about the donors. We also established a sentinel plot at the university field station with fruit trees. So there are 100 trees that are planted in that sentinel plot. In collaboration with the Faculty of Humanities and Education, we did a documentary for this celebration. And in our iconic Tropical Agriculture Journal, the special issue was published, which comprised 2 best articles from each decade of the 100 years. During that period as well, we converted our MSc and postgraduate diploma programs to blended and fully online. Of course, that would have been motivated by the COVID-19, but they are still operating in that particular mode. And we also developed new programs that are also delivered in the blended and online mode. Very relevant programs like the postgraduate diploma in climate resilient agriculture, agriculture extension and community development, the BSc in disaster risk resilience for agriculture and the environment, the MSc in food security, and also the postgraduate diploma in pesticide technology and management. We also, excuse me, we also went in to attract non-traditional students. And so we had professional development certificates that were established. The principle, one of them is the principle of planned quarantine for Caribbean quarantine inspectors and custom officers, which was made fully online. We also, in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, we are now delivering the professional certificate in shade house production and management to 100 youth. And this will continue for 3 consecutive years, with each cohort having 100 youth between the ages of 16 to 35. With respect to with respect to our initiatives, some of the initiatives going forward, we are looking at a number of things. The first initiative is to improve, of course, regional food security and climate resilience of the agri-environmental sector through innovative research, capacity building, and the development of projects. And one of the ways in which we are looking at doing this is we have an innovative insect farm that is currently being developed at the university field station. And this will become a regional hub, particularly because of the high cost of animal feed, which has affected our food security. So we are using insect in order to substitute in this feed so that the cost of animal feed will be reduced in our region and, of course, in our nation as well. We are also in discussion with Nestle to establish a model dairy farm in order to increase milk production and also to demonstrate best practice in dairy management, dairy husbandry, and also milk production, which we know milk is an important the food in the society. We are also moving to register a biopesticide, which is also a biostimulant, which we developed over the COVID-19 period in our labs. We're now looking to register it. It's already in the market, but we're looking to get it registered for a wider distribution. With the Faculty of Medical Sciences, we are also having a team, an expert team that is looking at diets, food diets, and health outcomes in the Caribbean. This group will continue to work on this because we want to sensitize the population about the relationship between food and the health outcomes that we are seeing. We are also looking at not just production, but we want to ensure that along the value chain, we are adding value to the produce so that the people will gravitate more towards local food. And we have this Eat Local initiative that we that we are also working on. We also have secured a JEF project, FAO project on fisheries of about $10 million, which we have been asked to be the executing partners. So that's something that we're going to be working on going forward. It's a multi-country project. We are also working with the greening initiative of the campus principal to contribute on having green roofs, rainwater harvesting, stormwater storage, and wastewater resource. That's another initiative. We are partnering because our intention is to have at least 50% of households starting to buy local and to eat local as well. And because of that, right now we are collaborating with regional corporations. We are collaborating with regional corporations in order to start with their burgesses and start at the grassroots and teach them, build capacity, and so on. The second initiative is a rebranding initiative. We want to restructure things in the faculty because we realize that even the name, Faculty of Food and Agriculture, does not really represent the expertise that reside in that faculty. So we're going to be working on that and to sensitize people about what agriculture is all about and so on. The third initiative is to increase our reach and to increase our reach and visibility as well through strengthen our partnership. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Woodavera. I'll try to be as brief and precise as I can. I'm going to be presenting for Dean Heather Cato, who is the previous Dean of the faculty. So all of these highlights I cannot claim. They are attributed to her hard work with her team. So some of the highlights that we have from the faculty. The first one is the Film Unit's International Awards. The principal already mentioned some of the awards that the Film Unit has won. I would also like to emphasize that the unit has also won international awards in Munich and in Rome for Best Director of Short Films. We are also proud that we were able to have a webinar series, the Autism Awareness Webinar Series, held by PEDIC, which is the Psychoeducational Diagnostic and Intervention Clinic. That was very popular, and we are happy that we were able to do that. It was important for us to establish during the period the foreign language requirement courses. This was a mandate that came down from the university, a very important requirement, particularly for our faculty that look specifically at languages, and we were able to develop all of the courses, as well as a foreign language requirement sign language course, which is also being offered in this suite. In terms of outreach, there was a lab established, a very exciting initiative, Social Innovation Lab, in partnership with Finland's For Learning Limited to fight poverty. From this initiative, we have a continued partnership with Oulu University, and we also created a certificate course in innovation and entrepreneurship, and that was quite a success. The faculty, of course, has faced quite a few challenges, and we continue to face those challenges. Humanities, and this is not specific to our campus or to the UWI. There is low enrollment in the humanities. That's a global issue that we have to deal with. So that is something that we're going to be looking at. Another challenge is the delivery mode as we go forward. The courses were offered online. And we have to think whether what is the best mode for delivery for our students in keeping with this context of low enrollment. The previous dean also started a course rationalization exercise, which is continuing now. Humanities, we are quite a dynamic faculty, so we offer lots of courses, but we're taking a look at the courses that we offer and to see what best fits now. Another challenge is to ensure that the student experience is an important one that also is linked to our recruitment. So student experience, of course, is not just academic, but it is also administrative and also the ability to travel, outreach activities, etc. Student placement is something that the faculty is also looking at. It is directly linked to our low enrollment, and we're well aware of that. Students say that they enjoy our courses, it's dynamic, but what they're concerned about is careers and placement. So this is something we have to think about, particularly in terms of internship programs that will at least get them into different industries. So these are some of the challenges that the faculty faced and we continue to face, and I intend to face. The way forward. It's important, as I said, to increase enrollment. So what are we thinking of? Expanding access is very important. And I think we have to think of expanding access, not just in the traditional way, but also in non-traditional ways as well. I think that is something that the faculty needs to explore. We're offering certificate programs that started in the last academic year, and we're continuing to do so that people can matriculate students, not necessarily having to do CAPE, can come in after their CXC. That is picking up slowly but surely, but it's important. Expanding access also in terms of experience, that's something that we need to think about as well. We've been working on portals. The previous dean, and I have to thank social sciences for this, helped the faculty, giving us access to marketing expertise who are helping us to develop our website and our social media platforms. Links with industry, corporate and alumni, and of course internships, as I said before, extremely important for the faculty. We are starting, this is a new initiative, not new, some of the faculties already have it, but an industry liaison committee, and that we're going to activate this, if not this semester, the beginning of next semester. I spoke about delivery mode already. That is very important, whether we stay online or blended, and I think that's something that we need to look at very carefully. Finally, and last but not least, what we all need to think about, of course, is revenue generation. So micro-credentialing, the faculties, all of us, we've been talking about it in this last year quite a bit. Course bundling, the way in which we have courses being bundled together, continuing professional education. We're looking at the film studio, doing a lot of work there, and using what we have, I think is important. And finally, The carnival experience, I have to admit I added that in. I think it's important that there's a lot to offer in the carnival experience. I think that conferences, of course, we can think of it in that way. Courses, we had courses where international students can come in, and I do believe that there is a market for the diasporic public on the outside. So I will stop there, and I thank you very much for your attention. I will hand you over now to Dr. Timothy Afonso, Acting Dean of Law.
Thank you very much, Dean. The Faculty of Law remains committed to the issue of access, the student experience, and the revenue revolution. Over the last year, if we look back, the law has introduced e-courses in investment law, sports law, intellectual property, energy, and law of the sea with a view of ensuring that we remain relevant. We've also offered internship opportunities to students in our undergraduate program with one of the largest law firms in the world, Linklaters. And the faculty launched taster sessions as a part of our revenue-generating activities. The idea was that persons who may be interested in doing a graduate program with law could actually test out some of the courses after they pay a nominal fee for maybe $100 for an hour, and they can be exposed to courses to see if they want to commit to the LLM. As we look forward, we can see that the faculty plans on engaging in industry-specific workshops which can be used to support the industry, the law fraternity, as well as try to engage in interdisciplinary work where persons who may need to know about law can be introduced or exposed to those areas. The faculty will now start a summer school in the next academic year. This will both raise finances, but it would also help with throughput, allowing students to finish within their necessary 3 years. And the final part is that the student experience, and this is linked to the faculty's commitment to social justice, that we are partnering with a human rights NGO over the next year to provide strategic litigation training that will focus on the rights of refugees and persons in remand, and we will also assist with conducting court monitoring research. I will now hand over to Professor Terence Imangal, Dean, Faculty of Medical Sciences.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, everyone, and special hello to the viewing audience outside of this meeting. For the Faculty of Medical Sciences, our major thrust is, and for that period of time, which is the academic year 2021 to 2022, our major thrust was on the COVID pandemic. We want to acknowledge the special contributions of the School of Veterinary Medicine laboratories and the preclinical laboratories, where a lot of the COVID-19 diagnostic work for the country was done. Our medical students, especially pharmacy and nursing students, participated in assisting the government in doing surveys and audits, which were not face-to-face, of course. And because during this period, a lot of them were, of course, not in classes, we have a lot of face-to-face classes and clinics with students and patients. And therefore, we were badly hit when it came to curriculum delivery during this period. But our students used the opportunity to learn a bit more about practice as they assisted the government in these audits and surveys. The dean also during this period was appointed as chair of a prime ministerial committee to look into COVID-19 outcomes in the country. In order to meet the urgent needs for healthcare professionals, we had to move away from the campus deadlines for examinations, and the campus was very flexible with us in allowing us to have examinations in January, for example. We had one this year. We had them in August. As soon as the curriculum could be delivered, we had our exit and clinical examinations. A very important pilot was done during this period, and that was in the exploration of emotional intelligence. The faculty as a whole uses very strong and objective academic criteria for admission. Right-brained criteria, which include, importantly, emotional intelligence, are difficult to assess. And we completed a pilot in this period, and looking forward over the next academic year, the pilot was also done on the other campuses of the faculty. And we are looking forward to implementing it with due notice being given to our national governments before it is done. Thank you, Chair. I hand over to Dr. Brian Coburn, Dean, Faculty of Science and Technology.
Thank you, Dean Simongo. Chair, colleagues, those joining us online, good morning. We have had we've expanded courses delivered in the blended and mixed modes and increased student engagement in current and new curricula, working hard to retain the benefits and lessons learned from remote delivery despite the return to in-person activity. New enrollment fell to 66% in the dark September of 2020 compared to 2019. We have since rebounded to 95% of our 2019 intake, and this is facilitated by robust outreach that engages meaningfully with communities. The FSC has partnered with external stakeholders to design online training in various fields, and access to programs was enhanced with bespoke educational instruments for working professionals in the fields of data analysis and statistics, occupational health and safety, renewable energy, and biomedical physics. Our strategy involves nurturing the next generation of scientists, ensuring that their curiosity and passion for science blossoms under our influence. We continue to strengthen and expand our relationships with secondary schools with two main activities. We staged the 5th edition of our annual math fair. The fair continues to attract large crowds and has spawned math clubs in several schools. This year we saw over 2,000 students visit the campus, and fair has now become a major event on the campus calendar. The Chemistry Olympiad is in its infancy and is an ambitious project aimed at raising the standard of chemistry in the country. We recognize the transformative potential of chemistry, especially in the context of the stellar work from the Department of Chemistry in characterizing and modifying natural products for medical applications. We are guiding young chemists to compete against the best in the world. The FSC is strengthening relationships with our stakeholders in both the public and private sectors to provide internships under a structured arrangement, the benefit of which allows all parties to plan for the activity and to extract considerable benefit. The response from all partners in the scheme has been overwhelmingly positive, from employers to the academic departments. But the testimonials from students suggest that the impact on their learning has been the biggest win. We are providing internships to our students at a level, we were providing internships to our students at a level of about 2 to 4% in 2017. We targeted providing internship experiences to 25% of FSC students over the course of the period 2022 to 2025. We are now at 8 to 10% and fully expect to meet and exceed our target. We consider this activity to be a key component of nation building and acknowledge that we must partner with external stakeholders in order to accomplish this. We have been at the forefront of increasing access to our programs and are embracing micro-credentialing and designing new instruments for adult learners. The current trend towards environmental, social, and governance criteria to provide a framework for crafting organizational strategy is speaking in a loud, clear voice for bespoke certificates crafted by market forces. It demands a measure of agility that we will be challenged to respond to, but we are ready. Finally, towards revenue generation, all I will say is that across our 5 departments, we are choosing analytical services as our focus. Thank you, Chair. I will now hand you over to Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. Dr. Cameron.
Thank you, Dean Coburn. Good morning, colleagues. Over the last 4 years, the Faculty of Social Sciences has been focusing on its vision to be socially engaged and solutions-oriented. And so over the period under review, 2021 to 2022, I want to highlight 3 key areas in the faculty. 1, we established a number of strategic partnerships, and 2 of those partnerships were with the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services and the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. We were pleased to provide training for 100 youth leaders throughout various community groups in Trinidad and Tobago. And so that partnership continues with the Ministry of Youth Development, and we do have to engage in further training of other initiatives. We also continue to engage in program enhancement within the Faculty of Social Sciences. This is an exercise that started about 2 years ago, and we have been revamping, revising, upgrading both our undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And one example of that program enhancement was the launch of our MSc in Strategic Leadership and Innovation, fully online, our first fully online program, and this has been receiving much traction in industry. And thirdly, we established a business development unit in 2021, and that unit is the key revenue generating arm for the faculty. And over the period of review, we would have issued 350 certificates awarded to learners across a series of seminars and workshops. This particular unit, the focus is to provide multiple learning pathways for individuals interested in upskilling, upgrading, uptooling within industry and the public sector. We also engage in consultancy work, and we were able to provide mentorship and training to entrepreneurs in the fashion industry. So we formed a partnership with Fashion TT, and we continue to provide services for that particular industry. So those are 3 highlights over the period in review. I'll just walk us through 3 key initiatives that we want to focus on in this upcoming year. Right, so we want to continue in this vein of program enhancement, and you would have heard the Dean of FST as well as Humanities speak to the issue of the micro-credentials. And it is a cross-faculty initiative where we are looking at a micro-credentials accelerator path program. And this is, we expect to develop a number of, Dean Coburn mentioned, bespoke certificates. So these are cross-disciplinary postgraduate certificates that we want to offer to industry as well as the public sector, and we expect to roll that out in this new academic year. The other thing that the faculty is focusing on is what we are calling the postgraduate program laddering. Now, this is an initiative whereby we have taken all our postgraduate course programs and we have laddered them from MSCs down to postgraduate diplomas, postgraduate certificates to single courses. Because based on our market research, we realize that persons sometimes cannot engage in a full master's degree. They cannot commit to the full program at one point in time. So we are offering these programs at bite sizes, and you are able to complete a full master's degree at your leisure. So you can build your program from a single course into a certificate, into postgraduate diploma, and all the way up to a master's degree. So that is a postgraduate program laddering initiative as part of program enhancement. The second area we want to look at is 2 areas in student development. We wanted to roll out a work-integrated learning program. By that we mean allowing students to better integrate theory with practice. This is something that we hear from our stakeholders all the time, that our students are sound theoretically, but challenged sometimes in terms of applying those skills in the workplace. And so we want to expand from simply offering internships, but we want to engage in field placements, we want to engage in various types of practicum exercises, and what we really want to push is civic engagement. Our students being able to give back to communities, engage in volunteerism, and all of that will be part of this work-integrated learning initiative. And this will be coupled with an industry mentorship program, and this is where we are partnering with some of the key players in industry to nurture some of our student leaders. And so we will be pairing our students with industry leaders in an industry mentorship program, and our advisory board will be leading this particular initiative. And then thirdly, we want to develop what we are calling the Faculty of Social Sciences Lifelong Professional Society. Now, the focus of this particular society is to allow us to develop a more long-term relationship with our graduates. The purpose of this society is to develop connections, ongoing connections. We want to stay in touch with our graduates. We want to contribute to building community as well as enhancing access via continual professional development. So those graduates who become part of this society will be connected to the faculty, where you will be engaged in lifelong learning. We will be providing programs and support for members of the society. This is almost like, if you want to call it a club, and this will allow us to ensure that we remain connected. So colleagues, thank you very much. I now hand you over to my colleague, Dean of the Faculty of Sport, Dr. Aksai Mansingh.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. My apologies for not being physically present there, but the Faculty of Sports had, the slides have just frozen on me. There we go. The Faculty of Sport, in keeping with what happened across the world, had one of the worst periods, because the last year was the worst period of sport in the world, perhaps in history. That affected our enrollments, but we'll get back to that shortly. On the other hand, we bid farewell to Professor Ayagina at the start of the year, who had given us excellent structural support in our neonatal period. And we, as you heard in the principal's report, had appointed Dr. Anand Ramprasad, who assumed as head of the Academy of Sport, as our academic who can now partake in teaching sport programs, or is teaching sport programs, and formulating other programs as we go ahead. The period is also very progressive in terms of getting approval for our new staff structure, which will allow us to move forward with the initiatives that we wanted, with people placed in the right positions. But just going back to student recruitment and teaching, we were hampered by the inability to get to students face-to-face, and therefore recruitment, which is usually done through that medium, was severely hampered. Happily, that has recommenced this year, and the picture you see on the right is actually an event that took place yesterday, with face-to-face meetings at a high school, and this will continue throughout the year. So hopefully that will bolster our students' applications and admissions for the following academic year. However, during the period in review, we strengthened our cross-campus teaching that we'd started before COVID across all of our academies, so that all 4 academies across 4 campuses, the 3 landed campuses in Mona, St. Augustine, Cable, and the Open Campus, students were able to avail of the best lecturers in their subject matters. That led to students being exposed to lecturers from all campuses, but also in a reduction in expenses, as we did not have to employ 4 lecturers to teach the same course across the 4 campuses. This is an initiative that we started, which the university is now looking at very strongly, but we're strengthening as each year goes by. We recognize that whereas we need to increase enrollment in our current programs, we also need to start new programs, and especially postgraduate programs. And the one that we looked at and have developed at the St. Augustine campus is an MSc in sports psychology. This is based on a demand that we've perceived, and we're doing market surveys right now. But also what's been very interesting is that we've been approached by a North American university who's partnered us in double degrees on other campuses to perhaps put this forward as a double degree for students in North America and the Caribbean. And as we progress along this line, we'll come for approval, obviously, through the various committees on campus. But it's something that we find very exciting, and in addition to what we had in mind initially. We also received a lot of applicants for our PhD program out of Trinidad, but unfortunately we had to route them through our Mona campus simply because of lack of academic staff at St. Augustine. With Dr. Ramprasad now in place, we do feel that we could start this program and just start obviously very modestly with one student maybe, but at least get it started because it is an important flagship of UWI, that is the higher degrees. Our facilities obviously suffered because of the restrictions last year, and our main revenue earner was the CPL, which continued to use St. Augustine as their sole practice venue in Trinidad when they come there. And that will also happen this year as well. In fact, we're earmarked for first-class cricket as well, but that fell through at the last moment. But we can see ourselves being seen as a venue in the future. Whereas things have returned to normal as far as restrictions are concerned, the lack of our air conditioning at the UWI St gymnasium has led to many cancellations of events which were potential earners. In fact, as you heard, even the graduation ceremonies that are traditionally held there moved away last year. Now that requires over $4 million to renovate or replace according to the last estimate, and will require discussion, or in fact is being discussed at the management level to see how we can get that on stream, because it will lead to major revenue intake if we can get it back up and running. However, our other fields are being utilized with increased rentals this year, and we're trying to just increase their utilization across as many sports as possible while maintaining the student balance as well. We do feel, however, that we need to have focused discussions on an approach towards revenue generation going forward, because there's a lot of potential on the fields and the facilities in sport, which we feel needs a sort of focused approach, and we're going to pursue this in the next few weeks. As far as partnerships are concerned, we're seeing the resumption of the half marathon, which also suffered during the period in review. But we're going to look at its realignment with its original purpose. Being one of our flagship events, the original purpose was really to generate funds for student scholarships, and that hasn't happened. So Dr. Ramprasad and his team are now looking at rejigging it in a way that we can maintain its eminence while getting some scholarship revenue as well. Just want to point out some other initiatives. We continue our partnership with CPL on many fronts, and the Caribbean Premier League had internships for students in the past that they did on their own. But last year we partnered with them in providing internships to sport marketing students on all of the venues that they had their matches. So for example, we had 3 students in Trinidad, as we did in St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Guyana, etc., etc. And the idea is that they come in, they get didactic teaching, and then they get internships in sport marketing, which are supervised. And that did so well last year that we're seeing to increase this to a 3-credit elective course for this year, so that students from within the university or outside of the region, that as we had last year, could use it as a free elective to come in and get their training in sports marketing, but also obviously for some revenue generation within the faculty. We continue our partnership with the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, and are looking at internships and experiential learning during the Commonwealth Youth Games that are scheduled for Trinidad later in the middle of the year, actually. And our partnership with the Trinidad Guardian continues with our fortnightly column called Sports Matters, which last year was also printed in the Jamaica Sunday Glino at the same time. So now we have a more regional footprint, and we're talking to the Barbados Advocate to have it printed there as well, so that this would be truly a regional column. However, we're happy to have produced our initial articles over a 3-year period in the publication that you see on the right, which clearly was guided and influenced by our editor, Professor Funzo Ayagina, as he sort of parted with us last year. Just taking a step back outside of St. Augustine to say that at a faculty level, we did conduct a lot of activities and attracted some grants, which will affect the St. Augustine Academy of Sport as well. So we continued with our sports governance workshops for the Association of Netball Federations of North America. This is the third year that we've been doing it, and clearly the Trinidad and Tobago Netball Association was very much a part of that as well. We also held our Level 2 sports broadcasting workshops, which were an advanced level to our Level 1 that we had over the last 2 years. And that attracted a lot of top journalists, sports journalists from Trinidad and Tobago as well. We completed our grant with Crêpes des Antilles of Guadeloupe, which is the High Performance Sports Institute of the French Antilles. It was a grant that we had with them, the Université des Antilles, and the government of France. And in completing that grant, we actually received a further grant from INSEP, which is the High Performance Center of France, and the government of France, which has led to us putting forward an executive master's, an MSc in European Caribbean High Performance Sports Management, which is now undergoing an Erasmus application for funding. And if that happens, it will see a major grant coming in, which will then have experiential learning in our campuses and therefore revenue generation for St. Augustine as well. We also completed our work on scoping the needs for climate change in sport, which was mooted in a lecture given by then Prime Minister Keith Mitchell at the Frank Worrell Memorial Lecture held by the faculty in Barbados. That led to a grant of $25,000 from the UNDP to scope what the needs were. And now we've applied for a substantial grant with USAID. And if that comes to fruition, then you're going to see, once again, a lot of input into the St. Augustine Academy of Sport. So those really are the highlights of what took place last year and where it has led in future thinking. I thank you very much, and I hand you back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our dynamic and hardworking deans. I think you can see the tremendous work that's happening at the faculty level, not just in the academic programming, but in research, in innovation, in entrepreneurship, and interestingly, expanded access, as you saw a couple of the faculties in the reports, and looking forward. Thank you again. Sadly, we are going to be losing to retirement 2 of those deans. Just want to mention our chair of deans, Professor Edwin Ekwe. I mean, we are sad, but we don't know, you guys might be very happy at retirement. And of course, our Dean of Medical Sciences, Professor Terence Mangles. We want to especially thank them for their dedication and service over the years and the tremendous work. So now we get into the money, financials, and I'm just going to briefly touch on it. I think we are all aware that we remain vulnerable financially. We're dependent government subventions, and which has been reduced, and also the GATE, which funds a lot of our students, has also been reduced. We saw the impact in the postgrad, for instance. We also operate in a system where tuition fees are restricted in the market environment, in the sense that we were not able last year to increase tuition fees as we had hoped to make ourselves market ready and sustainable and self-sufficient. And we also have huge challenges in relation to a plant infrastructure that is delaying, especially because we had to park it down for a couple of years. You know what happens when you close up your house. So we've had to fix many, many things. And as you heard too, there's been a decline in enrollment. And despite the fact that St. Augustine campus still offers the lowest costing degrees and programs in all of the campuses, and I'm sure it's competitive across the world, we are still challenged in relation to our finances. And so we are moving towards, of course, in terms of our budget preparations, trying to be a lot more self-sufficient, to generate as much revenue as we can, and also, of course, hoping that with the improved financial context in the country, that our own finances will improve. And here is a table here, consolidated statement of income. I won't read it, but you can see the various aspects of it. So take a moment to glance at the figures and see where we are. in terms of our statement of income. Hopefully when I report next year, that will look a lot healthier. And our consolidated statement of expenses is also provided for accounting purposes and accountability purposes to you, all of the various departments, special projects, how they have contributed, the commercial operations, which we work very hard at, our losses, our depreciation, and so on. And this is a statement on our government receivables, bearing in mind that this is a regional university, so we also receive income from governments across the region. We see how important the gate is here still to our income, and believe you me, we are still very grateful to have a gate in this country, so let's don't forget that. Also our PSIP projects, which help us with our, you heard about the AC and so on, helps us with those big projects. We've had our water treatment plant fixed. We're very pleased about those contributions from government as well. And scholarships continue to be important. So in summary, what we have seen in the past year is a reduction in the Trinidad and Tobago's government subvention by 18.8%. We've seen a reduction in student numbers by 17.5%, which impacts our income. And we've seen a reduction in UWI staff headcount by 16.8%, which means that we have been really saving as much as we can, reducing our own costs. We've continued to do that for quite a long time. And we are seeing our CGC budget, which is funded by campus earnings reserves, 8.97%. I should mention also, as I was talking about persons who are retiring, I should mention that, when it rains, it pours, because both our bursar and our deputy bursar, they are both retiring this year, and I want to pause just to again acknowledge the tremendous contribution that they have given to us. Our bursar, Mrs. Andrea Taylor-Hanna, and our deputy, Mrs. Ella Ducaran, will be leaving us for retirement this year, and they have had tremendous responsibility, not just last year in that crisis, but I think our bursar is fond of reminding us that she was never here for the good days. As soon as she came in, we got into an economic decline through no fault of her own. She had to cope with it. So she had extra work all throughout her tenure. And I think the fact that we are still standing, still surviving, that we are still rooted, ready, and rising, has a lot to do with our bursary. So let's please So moving now on to just a little tidbit about our future before I wrap up, because of course this is a report of what happened last year, but I want to assure you that we are moving forward, focused not just on our campus strategy, but on the university's AAA strategy, which remains with us, but with an added component of revenue generation, what we're calling the revenue revolution. So we are very much immersed into that. And our campus strategy is to build on the gains, and you've heard some of those gains that we have already made. And we, in particular, in terms of revenue generation, innovation, entrepreneurship, and so on, we intend to invest, spend the next year, this year, in fact, investing in our future, both tangibly and intangibly, in some of the big projects that I'll show you in a minute, so that we can reap later. One of the big ones is the chocolate factory that you have heard about, I'm sure, or you've certainly heard of the CRC, Cocoa Research Center, which is one of the prime drivers of the cocoa industry in Trinidad and Tobago. I would say revolutionized that industry. And now that department is hoping to convert all of its expertise and so on into entrepreneurship with the building of this cocoa chocolate factory. A big one from the Faculty of Medical Sciences, the Global School of Medicine, And we want to empower what is now a dead space at the South Campus, to bring that alive with a thriving offshore, some of you may call it school, but we're calling it Global School of Medicine. And in so doing, we can leverage the considerable advantages that we have already, the reputation of our medical faculty and our accreditation status. And we see this as a really huge project with considerable revenue generation in the future, a high-value asset that we need to invest in. And the third big project that we have coming up in the future and already started with the groundwork is our alumni giving project, where we hope to encourage our thousands and hundreds and thousands of alumni to be more philanthropic and to donate to us, as happens all over the world with other universities. And this year, of course, 75th anniversary, we hope to stimulate that interest. So this is a nice little triad here of our future focus, looking at all the various paths, revenue generation, building relationships with the private sector, ensuring that we actively support the development agenda of Trinidad and Tobago and the region, that we are engaged in the community. We have work to do in Guyana as they open up. We want to be able to use our own scholarship to fuel advocacy, development, advance humanity, and generally this notion of investment in all of these areas. Also with some of our products, we have some really wonderful products coming out of the Faculty of Sciences. For example, we've created companies like Seal It with our sealant products, and so many, as you already heard, about the organic pesticides from agriculture, and so many more in the pipeline. We hope to be able to leverage all of these for revenue generation and to ensure that our research is meeting the needs of the community. And as we continue to develop as an entrepreneurial campus, we will ensure that we make progress, but our outcomes should be socially progressive and should ensure genuine development. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. And we hope that next year in the report, we'll be talking about some really concrete gains and success. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Antoine. Principal, I should say. Principal, thank you. I must say special thanks to your deans for their resilience and commitment in a very difficult time, you know, and really that is very much appreciated by the university and by me as your chair. I would now ask Vice Chancellor Hilary Beckles, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I recognize the protocol, but allow me, of course, to extend a special commendation to our principal and her team at the campus, as well as all representatives of governments across the region, and of course, generally all members of the campus council. I commend the principal for her report, which has been so eloquently presented to us with very significant detail and a comprehensive account of the year in review of the St. Augustine campus, with her projections into the future that will be a critical part of her own visioning as well as the university on the whole. Her report is presented against the background of the 75th anniversary of the University of the West Indies and the 60th anniversary of the Cave Hill campus. What the report, in fact, does for me is to emphasize even more what we have been saying all along, that university management and in difficult circumstances will require very scientific approaches rather than ad hoc responses and recognizing that this is precisely what our strategic plan is all about, as scientific as possible. An approach to decision making, evidentiary basis being used to inform those choices with a clear vision of the kind of university that we wish to achieve. And the good news, of course, is that here we are in our 75th year, and we can say with confidence that the reputation of the University of the West Indies has never been greater. And this is where we are. Our performance have shown this, and the evaluations of that performance have demonstrated this, and the rankings of the universities competitively across the world, we can sustain this argument that our reputation has never been greater, and critically, that the visibility of our university across that global space has also never been greater. Indeed, this was the thesis of my presentation to the heads of governments 3 weeks ago in Nassau. This was basically the thrust of the presentation and the discussion with the heads. But we have focused all along on ensuring that we will create the kind of university we desire. A university that is not only excellent in terms of its academic output, but also ethical in terms of its relationship with the societies we serve. We have set out to be, within the context of our strategic plan, an activist university. Activist in the sense that we are engaged with the communities we serve, with finding solutions to the challenges facing Caribbean society and economy. We identify these challenges. We have a clear understanding of the development needs of this region, and therefore how we throw our support behind strategies to achieve these targets, and that makes us an activist university. So the 75th year in which we are currently enjoying is a moment of reflection. We have every opportunity across the UWI-verse, all the faculties across the system, to reflect on the significance of intergenerational achievement, that we as Caribbean people, we have focused ourselves as academics, as students, administrators, the government support for this public university, and we can reflect on 75 years of decision-making, of commitment, strategizing, while at the same time not resting on our laurels, not resting in passive celebration, but projecting to the future. And thus, we have determined that this 75th year will also be the year in which we will be looking in very detailed fashions at what the Caribbean should look like from our perspective by 2040. So we are future focused. We are celebrating past achievements, but we also future focused because there's a lot of work to be done going forward, and we have to be seen at all times to be out there in our communities, sleeves rolled up and getting on with it as an activist university. The year in review has helped us, of course, to demonstrate how we went about this, particularly in the area of public health and pandemic management. I believe that university in 2020-21, I think that university has had its finest hour. This is not hyperbolic. Why do I say this? I say this because the way in which the university has gone about working with the governments and the ministries of health, the public health infrastructure across the region in each jurisdiction, the way in which our medical science colleagues have gone about this matter of serving the public interest has been extraordinary. When we look at the mayhem north of us and south of us, as this juggernaut of death and destruction moved through the world, we were able to say that in the Caribbean context, we have probably had the best case scenario in a difficult circumstance, but the best case scenario. It's had a lot to do with the role of the University of the West Indies, working hand in glove with governments, with communities, bringing the science to bear, measurements, evaluations, studying the trajectory and the mobility of the virus across communities, across the region. And I really wish to commend the medical faculty in all related the science disciplines. And to thank also Professor Clive Landis, who was the chairman of the university-wide COVID-19 task force, where we assembled the best of our virologists, epidemiologists, microbiologists, and we put them all together to stand with the governments to work this through and find strategies and solutions. I was very proud indeed to hear the governments at CARICOM meeting after meeting, commending the university, working with the Caribbean Public Health Agency, hand in glove, providing the research and helping governments to shape policy. And saving lives is what a university is all about, protecting its people. And we did this not only in the public health space, but also in respect of natural disasters. Principal made reference to the Seismic Research Center, St. Augustine base, but it was out there in the field, in St. Vincent, Volcano Soufriere. And when I visited our colleagues up in the hills on the periphery of that volcano, and I saw dedicated colleagues monitoring day by day, week by week, month by month, how this volcano was going to erupt, when and where, how government should adjust community redeployment and so on. And that seismic research unit, working in St. Vincent, working with the government, have saved lives again. And I've heard Prime Minister Gonzalez on more than one occasion commending the Seismic Research Center for saving lives in his country by providing timely, relevant research that enabled policy to be implemented. This is what our university has been trying to achieve in all areas, all the big areas, doing the necessary research around matters like poverty reduction in our region, inequality in our region, alternative energy, sustainable solutions to energy, all of these broad matters. And of course, there are many more. The university, year in review, was able to demonstrate an excellent performance, not only in saving lives, but seeking to enhance the quality of lives of our people. And of course, Principal Antoine is fully on top of all of this because she comes to her portfolio as principal, having served as Pro-Vice Chancellor for research, and she would have seen the activity of the university in St. Augustine and across, projecting relevant and precise research necessary. And of course, having served as the Dean of the Faculty of Law with a pedagogical commitment to social justice and to access, all of this has prepared her magnificently. And so she has arrived as principal ready and rooted. And already we have heard her commenting about the significant increase in research funding at the campus level. This is reflected also in the university level, because as you know, colleagues, we are funded by our governments primarily primarily as an undergraduate teaching institution. And therefore, since we do not have a budgetary structure that speaks to the creation of a research university, colleagues in the faculties, colleagues on the campuses have had to pursue research funding from the international donor community and from the private sector. And these have been the principal source of research funding over the decades. And where we have reached in our rankings as a result of our research output, its quality and quantity and its impact, we are able to say that it is the entrepreneurial innovation of campus communities, faculties across the university that have pursued aggressively research funding from the donor international community that has enabled this to happen in a sustainable basis, thus the significant achievements in the international rankings of our university. We've heard a great deal of all of the awards that have been won by staff over the year, and this is a reflection of the commitment and the morale of the community internally, who are motivated to achieve the best they can for their campus and for their universities. I wish to commend them especially for embracing the concept of the multilingual UWI. For 70 plus years, we have been attached or shackled to the English language, which, as we know, is a minority language in our region. And we have functioned in that linguistic infrastructure from the very beginning. But we have taken the strategic decision that the mobility and employability of our students, and those students who are, we have heard from the Dean, are having challenges with comprehending career paths through the humanities especially. But now we have implemented a policy that all students entering the University of the West Indies must, before graduation, acquire conversational proficiency and competence in a language other than English. This has now made us into a multilingual society, university, consistent with the social, with the academic band to which we belong. All of the global elite universities have already developed multilingualism as a part of their academic infrastructure. And now we have joined that group. We will now be producing generations and cohorts of students who are multilingual, prepared for the broader Caribbean world, prepared for the hemisphere and the world. This will be a great asset to the private sector looking for that kind of quality within the graduate communities, the employer class, and generally the international community. And this will change the dynamics of the university's engagement with the world through this very critical transformational development. And all of this is embedded in the strategic plan of the university, which has as a subtitle, Rekindling Caribbean Development, because we are focusing not only on ourselves, we are focusing on the people of this region. And the wonderful thing about all of this is that there is complete buy-in from the academic family community in engaging the strategic plan. Because we have gone about the strategic plan in phase 1 and phase 2, again, as scientific as we could. We said the first thing we have to do is focus on rebuilding the reputation of this university and moving that reputation to a global competitive level. And that was the first phase of the strategic plan, and we have achieved that. We have significantly achieved the launch of the reputation revolution, and UWI is now respected globally as an elite institution that is not elitist. And this is very important for us. Second phase now is the revenue revolution, because the most important single matter in front of us as administrators right now is securing the financial sustainability of this institution within a region that has had very anemic and spotty bouts of economic growth. And we must realize that we have a double task. One, to assist the region in that sustainability of acceptable economic growth, but at the same time protecting the institution as a long-term asset for the people of this region. I was very, very pleased to hear the principal speaking about the big projects. The big projects. The cocoa enterprise, a magnificent project primed and ready for the world, driven by the St. Augustine research agenda. This is the kind of enterprise that will give the campus the kind of revenue investment potential for the future. She spoke also about the global medical school. Now, this is another very significant, not only campus, but this is a national project to build that medical spine for research and student engagement from Mount Hope through to Couva, all the way to Penalty Bay, that spine that will become the medical artery of the country. This is an innovative project, but it can only come into fruition as a developmental vehicle for the country if the government works with the campus and the campus work with the government, and together, they go about this in a very scientific fashion. It is right on the cusp of achievement. It has already been approved by the University Council. The government has already worked closely with the campus and the university. It is now ready to be rolled out. And this is going to be a significant revenue earner and foreign exchange earner for the country when it is implemented. In effect, then, what we are talking about is a strategic plan for the university that is rooted on all of our campuses, but will require a new and more engaged hands-on relationships with our governments. Many of these projects are built on lands owned by the government and will require certain kinds of support by the government. So we are entering a phase in which the university is seeking to be a hybrid university. Hybrid in the sense that it is a public university serving the public good, but it is also an entrepreneurial university in pursuit of revenue to sustain its own agenda. This hybrid model can only come into effect with the intimacy of our relationships with our governments and private sector. And I'm calling, therefore, for that kind of ecosystem that will enable these excellent projects that are on the agenda of the St. Augustine campuses and all the other campuses to come into effect. This is a new phase. This is a new phase in the development of the university. It's a phase that the governments have asked us to pursue to reduce our reliance on the public purse, but at the same time to find alternative routes of revenue. And I am so pleased to report that the University of the West Indies family has embraced this vision, and it is actively pursuing implementation, campus by campus, all the way down into the faculties. The principal has made it clear that while these big projects are going to be very significant structurally, medium to long term, there is a multiplicity of smaller projects within the faculties that will also add significant value. And those smaller projects, in conjunction with the more efficient harvesting of the fiscal, and I wish to join the principal in commending Bursa Hannah and her team in helping our campus to reduce expenditure, to rationalize expenditure, to achieve savings through the redeployment of scarce resources, because we are looking at both sides of the balance sheet. The revenue generated on the one hand, but also significant efficiency gains and savings from redeployment, from cutting and thriving wherever we can. St. Augustine campus has demonstrated that it can do this, it will do this, and we would love to see the campus rewarded for this. Unfortunately, we've had some budget cuts, but we would like to see the campus rewarded for being a good campus, for being a responsible campus. We would like to see the campus rewarded for taking its commitment to country and region very, very seriously by an activist approach to resource management. And so, colleagues, then the tide is turning. The tide is turning. It is like turning a cruise ship in a small harbor. It is not going to happen rapidly. It's a slow but gradual but determined process. And we are now in a position of getting this hybrid university, this ship out to sea. And as I have said, working with our government sector at this stage is going to be absolutely critical. And so we have confronted in the year in review and projected for the future the main challenges of our university and region. This is a great moment for us in this university to be here at the 75th, taking responsibility for this future movement in the sustainability of our institution. It is the responsibility of our time. It is the movement from the reputation revolution, converting that into the revenue revolution. And I am so pleased to say that we have a principal in Professor Antoine, and listening to her conviction and her passion, she's committed to this process. We are going to create a 21st century UWI on our campuses that is fit for survivability going forward. So, Madam Chair, thank you for this opportunity to commend upon the principal report and to offer these general remarks in respect of the university as a whole at this time in its 75th year.
And thank you so much, Vice Chancellor. And permit me to just sort of echo your words of the 75th anniversary being a time for reflection, but for us to understand that we need to be future focused. And as we see here, the St. Augustine campus in our report, and I'll just say a new day has indeed come. So now I would turn the meeting over to the campus registrar for her to take us through the question and answer segment. Registrar?
Thank you, Ms. Christopher. As the chair mentioned, introduced, my name is Donrady Fugil. I'm the campus registrar, and I'll be moderating the Q&A segment this afternoon. Firstly, I want to thank the members of the media for joining us, as well as our live stream audience, which comprises members of council and the public. We'll now open the floor for your questions. We ask that you kindly direct your questions or comments to the head table. I will ask the campus principal to lead in the responses. We will first take questions from members of council and then the media. For a smooth flow of this segment, I remind members of council and members of the media joining us via Zoom to please use the hand tool on Zoom, and I will call on you. At that point, I will ask you to open your microphone and state your name before you begin. For viewers on the UWI TV platform, please enter your questions in the chat. A member of our team would direct your question to the head table on your behalf. We will now begin, and I will ask persons from within the room if they have any questions first, and we will address those and then take those from the virtual environment. I'm going to ask the technical team to assist with fielding these questions to me from the online environment.
Morning, Registrar. One question from a member of the media. Ms. Renisa Cutting, TV6 News. She's asking, I'm seeking an update on salaries for UWI staff. A number of staff have advised that they have not been paid since January and they have not had any communication on the matter. Can UWI advise what is causing the delay and when the issue will be rectified, please?
Thank you. I'm going to ask my registrar to answer that one. Thank you.
Thank you, campus principal. Our feedback and confirmation from the open campus, because this question relates directly to the open campus operations, is that the staff have been paid and for January and February, and we've confirmed that.
Thank you, Registrar. Another question from the online audience, and it has to do with online teaching. On the heels of the pandemic, UWI reverted to on-campus classes. Has the campus considered the benefits of continuing online? From a financial perspective, wouldn't online classes have the potential to reach more persons, increase enrollment, and enhance the financial bottom line of the St. Augustine campus?
Thank you, yes. Of course, we have considered online, and more so we've considered, well, you may not know this term, high flux is the correct term, we are told, not hybrid or blended, which is a combination of face-to-face and online. We do see the advantages of online, but we also understand the very important advantages of face-to-face, and also that the gravitas that a university has when it's not just an online university, and I'm not knocking online universities, but there's something important about a university experience. So going forward, what we intend to do is to expand access to online teaching, mainly in the hybrid, high flux environment, but in some cases with the postgrad, for instance, you may get full online as we go global. You may have heard about our Global Online, the Vice Chancellor's initiative. But we would not intend it to be, nor do we wish to be, an online university, pure and simple. There are some issues with accreditation. I'm going to ask my registrar to explain to you those accreditation issues. But philosophically, we remain a university that is not an online university, but will embrace the technology.
Thank you, Principal. With respect to the online environment and accreditation, what we have found is that, and what we have been directed by ACTT is that programs that were accredited on a face-to-face modality, we'll have to rethink and resubmit for consideration if we want to move to online or blended modality. And we are in discussions with ACTT with respect to how we can do this in a quick and thorough manner while maintaining and ensuring that the quality and the accreditation status remains.
Thank you, Registrar. Another question from online. What is the status of the DV campus, and what about the planned Couva Children's Hospital?
Well, two different questions. So the South Campus, you may have heard when I briefly presented on the Global Medical School, I talked about empowering that space, which is not being utilized. We were very honored and pleased that we were able to contribute to the national agenda in terms of COVID. That was one of the spaces that UWI was asked to use to house patients during the pandemic, and we did so. As I said, it was an honor for us to do so. But now that we have it back, we are doing some repairs. It's quite expensive. So should I tell them the bill? No, I'm not going to. But very expensive to do repairs, not just because of that, but as I said, it's been down for a while. But we do intend, that is a space targeted for the Global Medical School that you've been hearing about and that we're so excited about, and that we're looking now for investment partners to bring it to fruition. So that's the South Campus, that's what it's called, South Campus. Now with regard to Couva, you would have already heard the Vice Chancellor mention Couva and how excited it is. What did he call it? A medical artery. So we are too also very looking forward to having a very significant asset for the university. We feel that would be a tremendous asset. I don't have any information in terms of details as to when and the how. That is something that was brokered with our Vice Chancellor and the government in Trinidad and Tobago. No doubt very soon they will be letting anyone on the details, but it's still on the cards. And as we go into self-sustainability and investment mode, having a hospital and, more importantly perhaps for us, a laboratory which can feed into the Global Medical School, because there's a laboratory complex there at Kufa, we think it could be a significant asset for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal. One last question from the online audience. Will the UWI St. Augustine revise its entry requirements in response to the decline in enrollment? And has the campus considered how this will affect the quality of outputs and the credibility of the degree? Thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat the last bit of the question, or was that a separate question?
No problem. It's the second part of the question is, and has the campus considered how this will affect the quality of outputs and the credibility of the degree? And they're referring to revising of the entry requirements.
Okay, so I suspect people don't even know what the entrance requirements are. Actually, entrance requirements for the university generally is a lot lower than you probably think. When we talk about expanded access, we mean several things, but I know that is speaking to something when we talk about professions. What typically happens is not just a question of whether you have the basic matriculation requirements, which can even be CSEC incidentally, and not CAPE, but whether you're competitive enough. You would have heard that access is an important strategic goal for the university generally. And you would have also heard this morning from some of the deans, the things that are already in place that they are doing to expand access. And expanded access, also, it means many things, including the vulnerable, those in rural areas, but it also means those who may not have either performed so well at CAPE or maybe not even done CAPE, because we are seeing a trend where many students are choosing not to do CAPE. I don't know if you're aware of that. So the university was sort of focused on the CAPE. And what we are saying is that we have many persons out there, young, some of them not so young, that can come into our D programs. There are different pathways to do so. So you heard Dean Ekwe talk about a very exciting development in the Faculty of Engineering, which is one of our foremost professions, to have pre-certification requirements. So if you didn't have the CAPE, you can come in, do an extra year or two, get a certificate which will give you access to the D program. That's one. Then you heard medical science talking about other criteria that you can look at in order to allow persons to study medicine. It's not just what you wrote on an exam that will make you into a good doctor. Might I say that also holds well for being a good lawyer. But yeah, so there are other criteria that you look at. In law, for example, we had a quota for persons with disabilities, yeah, which has worked well. Generally in the university for many, many years, which you may not have realized, we have had a criteria where as a mature student with life experience, you can matriculate, which means entering university. All of these are examples of expanded access. I want to refer to something that our Vice Chancellor did many years ago when he was principal of Caville, which always struck a chord in me. He provided scholarships or access scholarships to persons of indigenous peoples, and many people from Dominica and Belize have accessed those who didn't have the sort of traditional qualifications. And that has we've done extremely well with that. You probably heard of Laws McCandle Dagger Scholarship as well. So I think there's a necessary concern in relation to the output part of it. I think I've explained the matriculation requirements. But to say that it will lower the degree is a false positive, because if you come into university, any university in the world, and I also think about those sports scholarships where you can, if you're good in basketball, you can get a scholarship to go anywhere, including Harvard. Once you get in there, you are treated like everyone else. There's no special requirement for you in terms of your exams or your tuition. You have to pass your exams. So once you pass your exams, whether you get a B.A. pass, whether you get a first class, which some people do, or you get an upper second, what have you, you are just as qualified. Your entrance requirement no longer counts. If you're a doctor and you qualified as a doctor, you're just as good as doctor anybody, or a lawyer, or an engineer, or arts major. So it is a false premise to suggest that because you came in with alternative criteria or different criteria, and that the only thing is if you get ones in CAPE, that's the only thing, then it is not the case. What matters is not what you did before or what you did in the past. It's what you're going to do once you enter university, how hard you're going to work, and to demonstrate that you can keep up. And I think one of the things university must do, and we have done, and we did in law, for example, with McCandle, Doug, and others, is to ensure that when you get here, if it is that you do need maybe special assistance support, thank you, Bursa, whether it's financial or otherwise, that we try to provide that. But what we want to do is to give more people opportunities to access tertiary education. And it does not lower our standards. In fact, it enhances our reputation, our standards in the world. Sorry for preaching, but kind of passionate about that.
Thank you, Principal. And this ends our open session for today. It brings us to end to the open session generally, and I want to thank everyone for attending and for joining us in this discussion. Members of Council, we will reconvene. I will.
Time?
Yes, yeah. So 45 minutes for lunch. And we'll reconvene in our closed session in 45 minutes' time, which will take us to 1:05. Okay. Yeah.
On October 3rd, 1948, months after the establishment of a branch of the University of London to serve British colonies, including an extramural department, then the University College of the West Indies, the first campus officially opened in Mona, Jamaica. 10 women and 23 men from across the Caribbean enrolled to study medicine. Later that year, through Royal Charter, the university was formally approved by the Privy Council. It has been rendered as a place of light, liberty, and learning, as well as a Caribbean response to the challenge of change by Sir Philip Sherlock, the first Director of Extramural Studies, and Professor Rex Nettleford, the first UWI alumnus to become Vice-Chancellor in their joint monograph documenting the university's history. 75 years ago, what began as a fledgling university campus in Jamaica has evolved into a future-driven and top-ranked global academy with 5 campuses across the Caribbean and global centers in North and Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Europe.
We are rich in innovations and ideas. We are powerful pelicans, ready to fly on those wings of change like never before.
We are renowned for an exceptional record of producing critical thinkers and leaders who serve the needs of the 21st century society, and at 75, we're just hitting our stride.
UWI's legacy is the light of stellar service and leadership in the Caribbean for 7.5 decades.
A global university rooted in the Caribbean, activist, SDG engaged, climate smart, and championing reparatory justice with a mission to advance learning, create knowledge, and foster innovation for the positive transformation of the Caribbean and the wider world. As we mark our 75th anniversary in 2023, the UWI at 75 Jubilee supports a reflection of our past, homage to the present, and the future outlook.
And so we have to be robust in our management, we have to be strategic in our decision making, and we have to ensure that this university continues to rise and to make proud the people of the Caribbean.
We are rooted. Although our growth and impact continues to be global, we remain strongly influenced by where our university's foundation was built and by our service to Caribbean people and their contributions to the UWI's development. We are ready. We continue to be an advocate for the region, its needs and advancement, and we are recognized as a valuable resource for expertise on every issue that it faces, playing an unprecedented role in enabling the Caribbean's readiness, ability to overcome challenges, to build the Caribbean's resilience, and revitalize Caribbean development. We are rising. We face head-on with realness and honesty the reality that there is still room for the university to grow. We are on a continuous path of improvement and development, and as the light rising from the west, we aspire to rise, to soar higher, and to be a beacon of empowerment to our community. Rooted, ready, rising. Join us for the 75th anniversary of the University of the West Indies. Learn more at www.uwi.edu/75.
The 75th anniversary of the university, 2023, will be a magnificent year.